So I recently rewatched one of my favorite episodes of everyone's childhood classic, SpongeBob SquarePants' Nasty Patty. Spoiler warning for that episode. The episode begins with the narrator, narrating during a dark and stormy night. Then cuts to Krabs being Krabs, quickly realizing the health inspector has arrived, and urging SpongeBob to give him a good experience. SpongeBob tries his best.
What can I get for you, handsome?
Yeesh. Soon SpongeBob and Krabs get excited because it looks like they're in the clear, but then...
We interrupt this can-can for a special news bulletin. Be on the lookout for a man who's been passing himself off as a health inspector in order to obtain free food. That's all for now.
Free food!
So SpongeBob and Krabs come up with the idea to create the most disgusting-looking thing my eyes have ever laid upon. So they give it to the health inspector, but then he starts to choke on a fly. And SpongeBob and Krabs think this reaction is because of the patty. So obviously they realize what they just did is very cruel and wrong and go to help him.
Listen! He ate it! Oh, look at him choke! Look at him suffer!
So as I was saying, they sadistically take pleasure in his pain and suffering when they realize that he's dead.
I don't think he'll be laughing, boy!
Why, sir?
Because that patty killed him!
And begin to freak out. But in reality, he's actually just unconscious. So they decide to hide the body, but the inspector starts to wake up.
Where am I?
Just to get hit in the head with a rock and go unconscious again. Then, after burying the body, the police run across them. SpongeBob proceeds to act completely unsuspicious and like a totally innocent person who definitely didn't just kill someone and bury the body. Then the cops offer them a ride, so SpongeBob puts the shovel and now unburied inspector in the trunk. Krabs subtly instructs SpongeBob to hide the body in the freezer at the Krusty Krab. When he goes to do it, he finds that the freezer is locked. So he hides the dude in his hat and goes to put him in the freezer, but then this chick decides to act like she owns the place and goes to get some ice from the freezer for her drink. So obviously, this sends Krabs into a panic, and he desperately tries to convince the cop not to go into the freezer. After this failed attempt at convincing her not to go in there, he finally cracks under the pressure and confesses that they killed the health inspector. So the cops open the freezer and see that it's empty. So SpongeBob and Krabs play it off as a joke, and they all have a good laugh until... The health inspector woke up and got out of the freezer. But side note, by the way, how did he get out of the freezer? Like, in front of them. Like, SpongeBob put him in there, and then the cops and Krabs were out there, and the back of it was locked. So how did he get in front of them from behind? Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, back to the scripted part. Then the cops start hitting the poor man because they think he's a zombie. But then they realize that it's the health inspector, and he gives them an A+ on his inspection, probably out of fear of his life. For his life. And after everything he's been through, this poor man just wants to have a Krabby Patty. But of course, instead, gets hit in the head one last time. But hey, since it's a cartoon, he should recover. I think. Whew! That was a lot to take in, huh? But as I said at the beginning, this is one of my favorite episodes of the show, and I would like to dissect why I think this episode is great. This episode has one of the most underrated aspects of storytelling as a whole, a strong, distinct atmosphere. This episode has the cool, old crime noir movie feel to it, like SpongeBob and Krabs truly can't tell anyone. Like they're all on their own with this dark secret eating at them. Couple that with the dark aesthetic, the rain, the stark shadows, the old-timey music, and you get yourself one hell of a cool atmosphere for this episode. Now, this episode is very obviously hilarious for a few reasons. One of them is the usual reason why SpongeBob is hysterical. Extremely well-written, well-timed jokes with good voice acting and funny animation to accommodate it. But another reason why this episode is funny is the usual absurdity of this show. In this case, that being two of the main characters of a kid's cartoon thinking that they killed someone and trying to cover up the murder. And it's not just the absurdity of that that's funny. There's just something hysterical about SpongeBob, SquarePants, and Krabs thinking they killed someone and freaking out while trying to cover it up. Also, this is one of the few times we see SpongeBob get that nefarious and have to deal with the consequences of it. Also, the dark aesthetic and atmosphere contrasting with the fact that this is SpongeBob SquarePants makes this episode funny. Now, you might think I'm grasping at straws here, looking for the themes of a goofy episode like this one, but as silly as it is, I think there's something to learn here. Like, for instance, I think that this episode does a good job of showing how quick people are to jump to conclusions. SpongeBob and Krabs didn't even stop for a second to think and consider that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't fake. But nope, they instantly decided to take action. Not to mention, they didn't even try to resuscitate the inspector, or even check if he was dead or not. They just assumed. And that doesn't even begin to mention the fact that even if the dude had been a fake, they didn't need to feed him the nasty patty. They could have just confronted him or reported him, but nope, they decided that feeding him that abomination was a good idea. All this could have been avoided if SpongeBob and Krabs had just taken a minute or two to think instead of just assuming / taking action. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, take a second or two and think. And don't kill the health inspector. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this video about everyone's favorite sponge, and that it didn't just soak up your time. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and God bless.